Hello everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I hope you are in a good condition and ready to continue our lesson today. In meeting 13, we are going to discuss about transitional words and phrases. Are you curious? Want to know about it? Let's see the next slide. Understanding of transitional words and phrases. There are some certain ways how to tell a story. Most of it start from beginning to end in the order in which things happen. Telling a story in the order in which things happen can be done by the use of transitional words and phrases, linking words or phrases which signal a shift from one idea to the next. For example, I read this following story. Yesterday, Jason went walking. He does not walk in the mornings. The sun was shining and he felt like some exercise. He saw lots of different animals, such as a bird, squirrels, butterflies, and rabbits. He decided to walk farther than usual to see how many more he could spot. He reached the pathway which would take me home. He was enjoying myself so much I decided to carry on. The weather was still warm, although the clouds were beginning to gather. He was quite far from home when the rain came down. It was only a gentle shower, but it soon started falling more heavily. By the time he got home, he was wet through and quite cold. Now, read this one. Yesterday, Jason went walking. Generally, he does not walk in the mornings. However, today the sun was shining and he felt like some exercise. During his walk, he saw lots of different animals such as birds, squirrels, butterflies, and rabbits. As a result, he decided to walk farther than usual to see how many more he could spot. Finally, he reached the pathway which would take him home. However, he was enjoying himself so much he decided to carry on. Besides, the weather was still warm, although the clouds were beginning to gather. As a result, he was quite far from home when the rain came down. To begin with, it was only a gentle shower, but it soon started falling more heavily. Consequently, by the time he got home, he was wet through and quite cold. Kinds of transitional words. The words in bold and italic are called transitional words and phrases. They help to link the ideas or sentences and make it sound better rather than the one without. Some kinds of transitional words and phrases. 1. Adding information and agree with the previous one. Also, again, as well as, besides, couple with, furthermore, in addition, likewise, moreover, similarly. For example, in the past, grandparents, parents, and children used to live together. In addition, sometimes brothers with their families were part of this extended family. 2. Diversion. By the way, incidentally. For example, he stumbled upon the nesting pair incidentally found only on this hill. 3. Showing result or consequence. Accordingly, as a result, consequently, for this reason, for this purpose, hence, otherwise, so then, subsequently, therefore, thus, thereupon, wherefore, because, since, and etc. For example, highway traffic came to a stop as a result of an accident that morning. 4. Contrast and comparison. Contrast by the same taken conversely instead. Likewise, on one hand, on the other hand, on the contrary, rather similarly, yet, but, however, still, nevertheless, in contrast, and etc. For example, the children were very happy. On the other hand, and perhaps more importantly, their parents were very proactive in providing good care. 5. Exception. Aside from, bearing, beside, except, excepting, excluding, exclusive of, other than, outside of, and etc. For example, consensus was arrived at by all of the members exclusive of those who could not vote. 6. Giving illustration. For example, for instance, for one thing, as an illustration, illustrated with, as an example, in this case, to illustrate, such as, and etc. For example, the chapter provided complex sequences, an example illustrated with a very simple semantic diagram. 7. Sequence. First of all, the second, to begin with, in the first place, at the same time, for now, for the time being, the next step, later on, meanwhile, next, then, soon, the meantime, later, while, earlier, simultaneously, afterward, in conclusion, with this in mind. For example, the music had a very retro sound, but at the same time incorporated a complex modern rhythm. Number 8. Generalizing. As a rule, as usual, for the most part, generally speaking, ordinarily, usually. For example, there were a few very talented artists in the class, but for the most part, the students only wanted to avoid the alternative course. Number 9, direction. Here, there, over there, beyond, nearly, opposite, under, above, to the left, to the right, in the distance, and etc. For example, they seemed the horizon for any signs, though in the distance she could not see the surprise coming her way. 10. Emphasize. Above all, with attention to, especially, particularly, singularly, and etc. For example, the Quakers gather each month with attention to deciding the business of their meeting. 11. Exemplifying. Especially, for instance, in particular, markedly, namely, particularly, including, specifically, such as, and etc. 12. Summarizing. After all, briefly, in any case, in any event, in briefing, in conclusion, on the whole, in short, in summary, and the final analysis, on balance. To sum up, to summarize and finally. For example, she didn't seem willing to sell the cars this week, but in any case, I don't get paid until the end of the month. Exercise, read and find out if there are any transitional words or phrases through the following story. The old man and his grandson. There was once a very old man whose eyes had become dim. His ears dulled of hearing, his knees trembled, and when he sat at the table, he could hardly hold the spoon, and spilled the broth upon the tablecloth or let it run out of his mouth. His son and his son's wife were disgusted at this, so the old grandfather at last had to sit in the corner behind the stove, and they gave him his food in an earthenware bowl, and not even enough of it. And he used to look toward the table with his eyes full of tears. Once, too, his trembling hand could not hold the bowl, and it fell to the ground and broke. The young wife scolded him, but he said nothing and only sighed. Then they brought him a wooden bowl for a few halfpence, out of which he had to eat. They were once sitting loose when the little grandson of 4 years old began to gather together some bits of wood upon the ground. "What are you doing there?" asked the father. "I'm making a little trough," answered the child, "for father and mother to eat out of when I'm big." The man and his wife looked at each other for a while, and presently began to cry. Then they took the old grandfather to the table, and henceforth always let him eat with them, and likewise said nothing if he did spill a little of anything. Choose one for the best answer below, based on this story. Okay, number one, what is the object of transitional word? Okay, do you know the answer? For number one, yes, the answer is A. What is the objective of transitional word? The answer A. To link the sentences sounds better. And number two, there are blah 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 kinds of transitional words. Okay, there are it can be there are 12 kinds of transitional words. Yes, that's right. And then number three, she didn't seem willing to sell the car this week, but in any case, I don't get paid until the end of the month. The sentence is example of, yes, example of summarizing, B. And number four, highway traffic came to a stop as a result of an accident that morning. From the sentence form, it can be known as, okay, this is consequence. So the answer, C. Number five, in their advertising business, saying things directly was not the rule. That is to say, they tried to convey the message subtly, though with creativity. It is called by, okay, yes, the restatement. Okay, now let's see vocabulary or glossy word that used in this lesson. Shift, that is noun, a change in position or direction. Both, that is noun, a thick soup made by boiling meat or fish and vegetables in water. And earthenware, that is adjective, made of very hard baked clay. Though noun, long, narrow, open container for animals to eat or drink from. Okay, Alhamdulillah, that's all the lesson today. I hope you understood and want to practice and keep reading to improve your reading skill. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inshallah, see you next time. Bye-bye.